Do you remember when cars had style so bold and strange it made every drive feel like the future had arrived early? In the 1950s, those chrome details and push-button gadgets turned every dashboard into a display of imagination and pride. When did driving stop feeling like an adventure worth dressing up for? Push-button transmissions were the definition of space-age luxury in the 1950s. Instead of a gear shift or lever, you pressed sleek little buttons on the dashboard: drive, reverse, neutral, all glowing like controls from a rocket ship. It felt like piloting the future, not just driving a car. Chrysler and Dodge led the charge, convinced this was the evolution of motoring. Drivers marveled at the smooth, silent transitions, their fingers tapping the dash with pride. Every button clicked with a satisfying precision, the same kind you'd hear in an old sci-fi movie cockpit. It made even a grocery run feel like a moon mission. But the system was delicate, and one wrong push could jam the mechanism mid-drive. Mechanics quickly learned to hate them, and by the early 1960s, most manufacturers had quietly gone back to regular gear shifts. Still, for a brief shining moment, the dashboard was a control panel and every driver a commander. It captured the 1950s belief that technology could make everything faster, sleeker, and simpler, even if it didn't always work out that way. Push-button transmissions were optimism on display, a dream of effortless progress glowing beneath chrome and glass. Highway record players were a wild experiment in turning cars into mobile living rooms. Built into the dash, these tiny turntables spun 45 RPM records while the world blurred by outside the window. In theory, it was the ultimate modern comfort. Music on demand no matter where you went. The problem, of course, was gravity. Every bump in the road made the needle jump, scratching favorite songs into static. But for drivers on smooth highways, it was magic, rock and roll spilling out of a moving car for the first time. Chrysler's Highway Hi-Fi was the most famous attempt, offering custom records with deeper grooves to survive potholes. You could play Sinatra, Elvis, or the Andrews Sisters as the white lines zipped beneath the tires. It wasn't cheap and it wasn't perfect, but it was pure 1950s daring, a belief that comfort and entertainment should travel everywhere with you. Even when it failed beautifully, with style that outshone its practicality. The idea lived on, paving the way for the cassette players, CD decks, and Bluetooth stereos that came after. Today, it sounds absurd, but in the golden age of chrome and vinyl, a car that could sing was a dream worth chasing. Rocket-inspired tail fins turned every car into a piece of rolling space-age sculpture. They jutted skyward, gleaming with chrome, as if ready to launch into orbit instead of cruise down Main Street. The 1950s were obsessed with flight, rockets, and the promise of tomorrow, and the cars showed it. Designers took cues from jet planes and missiles, adding pointed fins that caught the light like polished wings. Parking lots looked like launch pads, every model competing to outshine the stars. Even family sedans looked fast standing still. Cadillac's 1959 models set the standard, their fins soaring so high they seemed to slice the clouds. It was the peak of automotive fantasy, a time when cars symbolized adventure and freedom rather than efficiency. Those tail fins said everything about the American spirit: bold, confident, and unafraid of excess. They weren't built for aerodynamics. They were built for dreams. When the space race cooled and tastes shifted to modest design, the fins faded, but their memory didn't. Even now, they're icons of an age when America believed its next stop was the stars, and every highway might just lead there. Bubble domes and panoramic windshields made cars look like rolling spaceships. Designers curved glass around the driver in sweeping arcs, wrapping them in a perfect view of the world ahead. The result was stunning. Sunlight poured in from every angle, making ordinary drives feel cinematic. But beauty came at a price. The curves distorted reflections, and glare turned sunny days into blinding hazards. Air conditioning was rare, so those glamorous glass cabins turned into greenhouses by noon. Still, in the 1950s, no one minded the sweat as long as the style turned heads. These domed windshields symbolized optimism. visibility for a bright, open future. They were impossible to ignore, dazzling and impractical all at once. Each curve captured the decade's obsession with progress and spectacle. It wasn't about comfort. It was about saying, "Look what we can build." By the 1960s, safety regulations and common sense tamed the designs. But for one brief decade, car windows were cathedrals of glass, refracting the hope of a generation. Swivel front seats were the height of automotive sophistication, and just a little absurd. Instead of climbing awkwardly out of a low-slung car, passengers could simply rotate the seat toward the door and step out gracefully. It was part luxury, part stage performance. The seats turned with a satisfying click, like a spotlight following its star. Women loved them for preserving skirts and dignity, and men enjoyed the novelty of spinning like captains in a command chair. But after a few years, the mechanics jammed, and the gimmick wore thin. Chrysler and GM both tried to perfect the idea, adding chrome trim and sales pitches about space-age convenience. It was flashy, futuristic, and fragile, an elegant dance partner that couldn't keep the rhythm. Still, it captured the decade's obsession with ease, comfort, and flair. In the 1950s, even getting out of the car was supposed to feel glamorous. The swivel seat vanished quietly, replaced by practicality, but for a moment, it made every exit look like a movie scene. Chrome hood ornaments were the jewelry of the open road. Every car wore one proudly: a leaping gazelle, a soaring rocket, a sleek airplane pointing toward tomorrow. They weren't just decorations, they were declarations of identity. Each sculpted figure reflected its maker's philosophy: speed, grace, or power cast in shining metal. The hood ornament was a driver's crown, gleaming at the front of the car like a promise of confidence and pride. People polished them until they sparkled so bright they could blind the morning sun. They weren't just metal, they were the spirit of motion carved into form. The sunlight would catch them just right, sending sparkles across the hood like starlight. They made even the slowest car feel alive, ready to run. Pontiac's Silver Streak and Packard's Goddess of Speed became works of art in motion, immortalized in chrome. But by the late 1950s, safety rules and minimalist trends dimmed their shine. Pedestrian safety didn't pair well with flying mascots. Still, for collectors and dreamers, those ornaments remain frozen symbols of the era's pride. They were proof that cars once had souls and wore them right on their hoods. Today, they glimmer from museum floors and car shows, reminders of a time when elegance outpaced caution. Built-in thermos and picnic sets were the luxury flex of the 1950s driver. Long road trips demanded class, and no elegant traveler would drink lukewarm coffee from a gas station. So high-end cars came with perfectly matched picnic gear: thermoses, metal cups, plates, and even cutlery, all tucked neatly into the trunk. It was travel as an art form, where every roadside stop could become a scene from a movie. Families would unfold their sets under the open sky, sipping coffee and eating sandwiches off monogrammed dishes. The clink of metal cups against the car's chrome bumper sounded like freedom itself. Each piece had its place, held in leather straps or polished wood compartments, ready for the perfect roadside meal. Even something as simple as pouring coffee became a performance of grace. It was automotive glamour meeting backyard leisure. Cadillac, Lincoln, and Rolls-Royce all dabbled in it, turning cars into rolling dining rooms. But as fast food chains began spreading across America, the picnic lost its prestige. The built-in sets became relics of a slower, gentler kind of travel, when the journey itself mattered as much as the destination. They were the perfect symbol of the 1950s dream: comfort, style, and a little touch of fantasy in every drive. Today, finding one of those old sets feels like uncovering treasure, a reminder that even coffee breaks used to have class. Under dash, cigarette drawer. Lighters were one of the strangest features to ever appear in family cars. Imagine pulling out a chrome drawer beneath the dash, filled not with storage, but with glowing cigarette lighters, sometimes 6 or more at once. It was an era when everyone smoked, and cars catered to the habit with pride. Each lighter had its own socket, each socket a glowing ring of red heat, ready for a puff at any moment. When the drawer slid open, it lit up like a control panel, glowing like a fiery constellation. The hum of the road mixed with the crackle of tobacco as smoke curled into the sunlight. It was convenience, ritual, and rebellion all rolled into one chrome compartment. Some drawers even came with ashtrays built right beside them, so the smoke never had to pause. It was comfort through combustion, a product of a time when smoking was sophistication. Passengers could light up in unison as if toasting to the future. The smell of tobacco, leather, and gasoline became the signature scent of the 1950s road trip. Of course, safety wasn't exactly top of mind. Burn marks and tiny fires were common. But back then, convenience trumped caution. The cigarette drawer faded with the rise of health warnings, but it remains one of the most bizarre relics of the era. A literal drawer of fire, built into every drive. Front bench seats turned every car into a couch on wheels. Before seat belts and center consoles, the front seat stretched wide enough for three, driver in the middle if needed, sweetheart snuggled close on date night. It was comfort, intimacy, and rebellion rolled into one. Teenagers loved them for reasons their parents pretended not to know. Families loved them because they meant room to pile in the kids or the dog. That wide seat was where countless first kisses happened, where families sang along to the radio, where life's small moments unfolded between the lines of the highway. The bench seat made driving feel human. It was connection stitched into vinyl. Everyone fit, and everyone belonged. And every road felt a little freer when no armrest divided you from the one you loved. The bench seat wasn't fancy. It was familiar, soft, and forgiving, built for a slower kind of driving. It made even short trips feel communal, every passenger part of the same shared space. But when safety and design evolved, individuality replaced togetherness. Bucket seats divided what bench seats once joined. Still, for anyone who ever slid across that endless cushion under dim dashboard light, the memory lingers of closeness, laughter, and a little harmless mischief parked under the stars. Tissue dispensers in dashboards were elegance hiding in plain sight. Mounted in gleaming chrome, they dispensed tissues like fine napkins from a high-end lounge. Every sniffle, sneeze, or lipstick smudge was met with grace. It wasn't just about hygiene, it was about class. Only the most thoughtful cars offered such small luxuries, where even a cold could be handled in style. Passengers admired the detail, pulling tissues from shining holders trimmed in gold or silver. Kleenex partnered with automakers, turning a humble necessity into a badge of sophistication. For families, it was a quiet convenience during long road trips. For drivers, it was another symbol of refinement. Even though it sounds absurd today, it reflected an age when design served dignity as much as function. Every feature had to be beautiful, even the ones meant for runny noses. The dashboard tissue box disappeared with the minimalist 1960s, but it remains a testament to an era that refused to separate utility from grace. Automatic headlight, dimmers better known as the Autronic eye, were the perfect mix of brilliance and frustration. A 1950s invention that promised the future and delivered sometimes. Perched proudly on the dashboard like a tiny robot eye, the sensor scanned the road ahead for oncoming headlights. When it worked, it dimmed your brights automatically, sparing everyone a blinding flash. But when it didn't, the results were unpredictable, sometimes plunging the driver into darkness or flashing the lights at passing mailboxes. It was an idea decades ahead of its time, born from the age's obsession with automation and ease. Drivers trusted it like a co-pilot, even when it had a mind of its own. General Motors marketed it as a marvel of electronic intelligence, a phrase that made every car sound half alive. At night, that little sensor gleamed beneath the windshield, proof that the future had arrived, at least until rain, bugs, or road signs confused it. Still, it captured the era's confidence that machines could handle what humans couldn't. It wasn't perfect, but neither was progress, and people loved it anyway. The Autronic eye faded out by the 1970s, but it left behind a legacy, an early glimpse of self-driving dreams, glowing softly under chrome and glass. Seatback, snack trays were the ultimate promise of convenience, airline luxury brought to the open road. Hidden behind the front seats, these fold-down metal trays flipped open like magic, creating instant dining tables for hungry passengers. Families on road trips could pull over, unpack sandwiches, and enjoy a full meal without ever leaving the car. Kids balanced their sodas carefully, parents poured coffee from thermoses, and everyone marveled at the simple brilliance of dining in motion. It was elegance mixed with practicality, the kind of small touch that made every journey feel first class. For a while, it worked beautifully, until someone hit a bump mid-bite. Automakers loved the glamour it added to their brochures, showing happy families eating in spotless cars parked along sunny highways. But the shine didn't last. Safety concerns and sticky spills ended the era of in-car dining tables. Still, they represented something sweet, a time when people believed travel itself could be a luxury. The open road was the dining room, and the car was the world's smallest restaurant with the best view. Today, cup holders and drive-thrus have replaced the charm, but nothing beats the memory of lunch on chrome trays under a big American sky. Car intercom, family phones, were the 1950s solution to a very specific problem: how to shout at your kids without losing your voice. Long station wagons had back seats so far away they felt like another zip code. So engineers installed small intercom systems, complete with microphones and speakers, letting parents speak to the way back without turning around. The driver could press a button, issue warnings, or check if anyone needed a bathroom stop, all without taking hands off the wheel. It was futuristic and slightly authoritarian, like a command center for family life. Children pretended it was a spy gadget, whispering secret messages between rows. The intercom gave road trips a touch of Jetsons-style flair, a glimpse of a world where cars doubled as homes and offices. Of course, half the time the static made voices sound like ghosts, and batteries died long before the trip ended. Still, it was innovation wrapped in fun, proof that no invention was too small to make family travel feel exciting. It was also the perfect symbol of the 1950s dream: family, technology, and togetherness, all controlled from the driver's seat. Today, minivans have Bluetooth microphones and backseat screens, but none of them feel as charmingly over-engineered as that little chrome family phone. Built-in dash compasses gave mid-century cars a sense of adventure, even when they barely worked. Mounted near the speedometer or above the glove box, these small magnetic globes floated in oil, pointing north in a gentle, hypnotic spin. Every turn of the steering wheel made the needle quiver like a heartbeat. Drivers trusted them with misplaced faith, even when passing steel bridges or power lines sent them spinning wild. But in a time before GPS or even reliable maps, a dashboard compass made any road feel like an expedition. The compass wasn't just a tool, it was a declaration. The open road was yours to explore. The tiny glass dome gleamed under sunlight, catching reflections from the chrome dash. Kids leaned forward to watch it, pretending they were pilots instead of passengers. It didn't matter that the directions were vague or wrong half the time. The romance of navigation was what mattered. A simple N glowing faintly in the dark was all it took to feel brave and boundless. The compass eventually disappeared, replaced by practicality, but it remains a relic of a decade that preferred wonder over precision. Dash-mounted clocks with wind-up mechanisms were the jewels of the dashboard, delicate ticking testaments to craftsmanship. Before electric clocks became standard, these small mechanical wonders kept time with gears and springs wound by hand. Each morning, the driver gave the tiny knob a twist, listening for the soft tick-tick that meant it was alive. The clock's polished face gleamed beside the speedometer, a touch of elegance in a world still finding its rhythm. They ran on precision and pride, even if they sometimes lagged behind reality. Passengers admired them like pocket watches embedded in steel. Some even chimed softly when reset, as if reminding everyone that time was precious, especially on the open road. The steady ticking became part of the car's heartbeat. Engine, tires, clock, all in motion together. They weren't just clocks. They were symbols of trust in craftsmanship and care. You wound them the way you wound life, by hand, one day at a time. When electric models arrived, the winding clocks faded away, but their quiet beauty still defines the golden age of motoring grace. Rear-facing third-row seats in wagons were every kid's favorite and every parent's nightmare. Facing backward, children could wave to passing cars, make faces at truckers, and feel like captains of their own tiny ship. For them, it was pure joy. For adults, it was mild chaos. Seatbelts were optional, supervision non-existent, and laughter uncontrollable. Kids invented games with the cars behind them, counting headlights or signaling honks with exaggerated waves. It made long drives feel like playground adventures on wheels. The third-row seat wasn't about safety. It was about family togetherness, a rolling carnival of motion and mischief. Parents up front had no idea what was happening behind them, and maybe that was for the best. Eventually, safety laws caught up, and the backward-facing seats vanished. But for those who grew up there, they remain a sacred childhood memory. It was the back row of freedom, filled with noise, giggles, and the blur of highway lights. Today's minivans might be safer, but none can recreate that wild, backward view of the world. Two-tone paint jobs with contrasting roofs turned every car into a work of art. Instead of a single, serious shade, 1950s cars exploded with personality, cherry red bodies under creamy white tops, turquoise paired with ivory, pale pink balanced by deep charcoal. The combinations were endless and bold. They reflected the optimism of post-war America, a time when even color felt like celebration. Designers treated cars like canvases, matching paints to chrome trim and dazzling harmony. The result was pure happiness, captured in metal and shine. People didn't just drive their cars, they showed them off, cruising slow so sunlight could catch every contour. Two-tone finishes demanded attention, announcing that style mattered as much as horsepower. Even decades later, their vibrancy still feels fresh, proof that art and engineering once shared the same dream. The era taught us something simple. Joy looks best when it's painted bright. As trends shifted to duller hues, that flash of personality faded, but those candy-colored cars still remind us of when the road itself was a fashion show. Continental spare tire kits were rolling symbols of luxury and excess. Inspired by the spare tire mounted on the back of early Lincolns, these chrome-clad additions extended the car's tail, adding weight, length, and undeniable glamour. A car with a Continental kit didn't just drive, it strutted. The gleaming cover, often engraved or painted, looked like a badge of wealth. It made the car seem longer, grander, and slightly impractical, exactly what made it special. Even a modest vehicle looked like a movie star's ride with one bolted to the rear bumper. Designers loved the flourish, and drivers loved the attention. The kits became status symbols, sold as factory options or aftermarket upgrades. They were the automotive equivalent of cufflinks, unnecessary but irresistible. They spoke of confidence, class, and a love of showmanship that defined the 1950s. By the 1960s, changing tastes trimmed them away, but they remain one of the most iconic details of mid-century car culture. Excess done right, glinting in the sunlight as it rolled by. Wraparound. Rear windows made cars look like moving bubbles of glass, sleek and futuristic from every angle. They curved around the rear pillars in one continuous sweep, offering panoramic views that turned passengers into sightseers. From the outside, they looked modern and aerodynamic, capturing light in every direction. Inside, though, the experience was intense. The glass trapped heat like an oven, turned sunsets into blinding glares, and made cleaning a full-time job. But no one could deny they were beautiful. The curved rear windows made even a parked car look fast, like it was gliding forward while standing still. Automakers marketed them as a new window on tomorrow, a phrase that perfectly fit the decade's love affair with innovation. They were proof that style could trump practicality, and that sometimes discomfort was a small price to pay for beauty. Even their flaws became part of their legend. As safety and efficiency took over, those sweeping windows vanished, but their reflections still sparkle in car shows, ghostly echoes of an age obsessed with looking forward. Fender-mounted rearview mirrors were both brilliant and baffling. Instead of being fixed near the driver, they sat far out on the front fenders, perched like chrome ears. The idea was style and aerodynamics, streamlined elegance that stretched the car's silhouette. From the curb, it looked incredible. From the driver's seat, it was a nightmare. You had to lean forward, squint, and sometimes guess what you were seeing. Adjusting them required getting out of the car entirely, which made sense only in a time when aesthetics ruled over logic. But oh, did they shine. Sunlight bounced off them like jewelry, turning every hood into a mirror of its own. They were perfect metaphors for the 1950s mindset. Beauty first, practicality second. The world was wide, the cars were long, and looking good mattered most of all. The fender mirrors didn't last long, but they left their mark, literally etched into chrome history as symbols of when even safety took a back seat to style. Car ashtrays with built-in cigarette holders were as standard in the 1950s as the steering wheel itself. Every car had one, sometimes more, each lined in chrome and designed like a miniature luxury accessory. Smoking was everywhere, and car interiors reflected that fact proudly. Ashtrays were built into doors, dashboards, and even the backs of seats, each with its own spring-loaded lid that clicked open with elegance. Some were so ornate they looked like jewelry boxes, complete with embossed logos and intricate patterns. Drivers took pride in how their ashtrays gleamed, cleaning them almost as carefully as the car's exterior. When the cigarette rested neatly in its holder, it wasn't just smoke, it was status. Automakers designed the trays to catch ashes without spilling, a small triumph of mid-century engineering. It wasn't uncommon for a car to have 4 or more, one for every passenger, because everyone was expected to light up. The smell of tobacco mixed with the scent of leather and gasoline, creating what many called the aroma of the open road. It was a time when smoke was sophistication, not sin. You weren't just driving, you were performing, tapping ash in rhythm with the hum of the engine. Today, those ashtrays sit empty, relics of an era when cars were rolling lounges, built for conversation, comfort, and the occasional puff of glamour. They might seem out of place now, but they tell the story of a world that once believed elegance and indulgence belonged in the same breath. Manual chokes and vent windows made driving in the 1950s feel like a personal ritual, part science and part intuition. Before computers and sensors, you didn't just start your car, you woke it up gently. The manual choke controlled the mix of air and fuel feeding the engine, a small pull knob that demanded finesse. On cold mornings, drivers sat shivering, adjusting the choke by feel until the sputter turned into a steady purr. It was an intimate relationship between human and machine, a little dance of patience and precision. Every smooth start felt earned. The vent windows, tiny triangular glass panes near the front windows, added another layer of control. Twist the chrome latch and a perfect breeze streamed in, cooling the cabin and defogging the windshield without the need for fancy climate systems. They were the original air conditioning, whispering with wind and promise as the car picked up speed. It made every trip feel alive, the car breathing as much as the driver. When automatic chokes and sealed windows arrived, the ritual ended. The new systems were easier, yes, but something was lost, the feeling that your touch truly mattered. For drivers who knew the hum and pulse of those older engines, the sound of one catching after a perfect choke adjustment was music, a symphony of connection between man, machine, and morning air. Floor dimmer switches for headlights were the perfect example of 1950s practicality wrapped in simplicity. Instead of flicking a stalk or twisting a dial, drivers tapped a small metal button beside the clutch with their left foot. It was satisfying, like kicking the future into gear. The sound was subtle, a click beneath the hum of the tires, and every driver knew it by feel alone. You didn't even need to look away from the road. For decades, that tiny switch was as much a part of driving as shifting gears. It made sense in a world where dashboards gleamed with chrome and not wires. Your feet handled the lights while your hands handled everything else. Families on road trips could tell who'd driven a stick shift by the faint black scuff on the left toe of their shoes, a mark of experience and independence. It was such a simple design, and yet it worked flawlessly for years, reliable even when the weather wasn't. There was something deeply satisfying about that tactile control, a rhythm that modern drivers will never know. Eventually, progress moved it to the steering column, all in the name of efficiency. But old-timers still miss that floor switch, the way it gave your foot the power to summon brightness into the night with one quiet press against cold metal. In-car electric shavers were the ultimate symbol of 1950s male ambition, a world where success meant never stopping, not even to shave. Tucked neatly into glove boxes or consoles, these plug-in razors ran off the car's cigarette lighter socket, humming softly as the highway rolled by. The image was perfect. A man in a fedora, one hand on the wheel, the other brushing his chin clean before a business meeting. It was innovation disguised as vanity, proof that the modern man could conquer time itself. The shaver cord dangled like a badge of progress, buzzing quietly over the sound of the radio. Automakers and accessory companies sold them as essentials, not luxuries. "Arrive sharp," the ads promised, as if a clean shave could solve the world's problems. Some models came in velvet-lined cases, others built directly into the dashboard for the man who refused to be late or unkempt. Of course, the reality was less glamorous. Razor burns, battery drain, and the occasional bump that turned neat grooming into disaster. But it didn't matter. The idea was everything. The in-car shaver was part of a bigger dream, the belief that technology could refine every moment of daily life. It disappeared quietly as lifestyles changed, but it remains a fascinating relic of a time when the American driver believed he could literally polish his image on the open road. Dashboard, traffic light viewer. Prisms were ingenious solutions to a problem caused by beauty itself. As car hoods grew longer and windshields lower, drivers couldn't see the traffic lights above them. So engineers invented a tiny glass prism that sat on the dash, reflecting the signal down into the driver's line of sight. It was simple and brilliant, a crystal periscope for the road. The prism caught the red, yellow, and green glow, turning it into floating color that hovered just above the dash. Even in the glare of sunlight, the soft reflection shimmered like something out of science fiction. Drivers marveled at how futuristic it looked, and for a brief moment, it worked perfectly. The prism added sparkle to an already chrome-heavy interior, making the cockpit feel elegant and advanced. It was functional art, a blend of necessity and charm that could only come from the 1950s. It reflected more than just lights. It reflected an age that believed clever design could solve anything. As car shapes evolved, the need vanished, and the little prisms disappeared with it. But for anyone who's ever seen one gleam on a dashboard, it's unforgettable. A tiny triangle of glass that captured the glow of progress, refracted through imagination. High-sodium frozen dinners were the guilty comfort of 1980s convenience culture. Every brand from Swanson to Banquet filled freezer aisles with Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, and gravy that could outlast the apocalypse. They were fast, cheap, and dependable, the perfect meal for anyone too tired to cook after a long day. The downside? Each tray contained more salt than an ocean wave. Doctors began linking them to hypertension and heart disease, and suddenly, convenience looked like a killer. What started as a quick dinner fix turned into a health crisis on a plate. The sodium levels weren't just high, they were astronomical, often topping 2,000 milligrams in a single meal. Nutritionists joked that a Swanson dinner was less food and more brine in a box. The FDA's evolving nutritional guidelines in the late 1980s forced companies to pull or reformulate entire product lines. The old recipes disappeared, replaced by heart-healthy versions that never quite tasted the same. For people who grew up on them, it felt like losing a piece of home. the salty, buttery kind. Frozen dinners didn't die, they just got watered down, literally and figuratively. But those who remember the originals can still taste that sodium-soaked nostalgia and the guilt that came with every delicious bite. Post-corn Toasties cereal was the great imposter of breakfast aisles. A knockoff so blatant it could only have been made in the 1970s. Trying to ride the coattails of Kellogg's Corn Flakes, Post created something that looked the same but tasted like regret and cardboard dust. The box screamed sunshine and happiness, but the cereal inside was as joyless as dry paper. Each flake disintegrated the moment milk touched it, turning into a soggy film that clung to the spoon like glue. The smell was faintly burnt, as if even the factory gave up halfway through. Parents bought it thinking they'd save a few cents. Kids refused it like medicine. Even sugar couldn't fix it. No matter how much you poured, it still tasted like broken promises. Post claimed their cereal was wholesome, crispy, and golden. Two of those words were lies, and the third was a stretch. Corn Toasties became a brief symbol of everything wrong with imitation food, a product that tried to be familiar but only reminded you how good the real thing was. It disappeared quietly, leaving behind empty bowls and the taste of defeat. Leave it to the 1950s to find a way to combine infants and industrial design. The glass baby bottle with a metal nipple was marketed as the hygienic choice for modern mothers. It promised durability, style, and the reassuring shine of polished chrome. In practice, it was a dentist's nightmare waiting to happen. Babies were encouraged to suckle from small metal spouts that turned freezing cold in winter and scorching hot in summer. The bottles themselves were heavy, slippery, and prone to shattering at the slightest drop. So basically, perfect for small, uncoordinated hands. Yet the ads were stunning. Rosy-cheeked babies drinking happily while mothers beamed at the future of feeding. Hospitals even endorsed them, believing glass and metal meant cleanliness. Plastic was considered cheap, rubber unsanitary. No one mentioned burns or lacerations. It was the golden age of over-engineering, where even baby care had to look like a rocket launch. Parents wanted sleek, scientific solutions to everything, even if they made no sense. By the end of the decade, common sense won. Soft silicone nipples replaced steel, and bottles became lighter and safer. But for a time, feeding your child looked like refueling a car. Clunky, dangerous, and somehow deeply optimistic. Swanson TV dinners changed the way America ate, literally overnight. Before them, families sat down together at the dining table, but by the mid-1950s, dinner was moving to the living room, served on a metal tray in front of the television. Each frozen meal, turkey, mashed potatoes, peas, and a brownie, felt futuristic, like something out of a science fair. Housewives loved them because they saved time, and children loved them because they felt special, like having a meal made just for them. Swanson's idea came from a surplus of Thanksgiving turkey, and what could have been a disaster turned into a cultural phenomenon. It was the perfect marriage of convenience and novelty, wrapped in shiny aluminum. The television tray soon became as essential as the set itself, transforming mealtime into family entertainment. It was food built for the atomic age, neat, portioned, and just modern enough to feel exciting. For the first time, America could eat and watch together, no mess, no fuss. It was comfort and convenience served hot in 25 minutes flat. The Swanson TV dinner wasn't just food, it was the birth of the modern mealtime, a sign that progress could be eaten with a fork. Lead-soldered canned goods were a ticking time bomb hiding in plain sight. Before the late 1980s, many canned foods, soups, vegetables, meats, were sealed with solder containing actual lead. It kept cans airtight but made every bite a potential health hazard. Researchers began noticing dangerously high lead levels in children's blood, especially in communities relying heavily on canned food. Acidic products like tomato soup were the worst offenders, dissolving metal into every spoonful. What started as a production shortcut turned into a national health crisis. Scientists discovered that acidic foods like tomatoes and fruits were leaching the metal right into people's meals. Children's products were the worst offenders, turning lunch into slow poisoning. When the studies came out, the FDA had no choice but to act. The new rules outlawed lead solder in all canned goods, forcing companies to overhaul production lines. For years, however, the damage had already been done, especially overseas where regulations came later. Looking back, it's shocking how normal it once seemed to trust metal sealed with toxins. The ban was a turning point in food safety and a sobering lesson in how progress sometimes hides poison under a label of convenience. Space food sticks were supposed to make you feel like an astronaut, but most people felt more like hostages to bad taste. Marketed as the food of the future, these chewy, tube-shaped snacks promised energy, convenience, and space-age nutrition. In reality, they were rubbery chocolate glue wrapped in foil, sticking to your teeth and your soul in equal measure. The packaging screamed adventure, but the flavor whispered punishment. They were dense enough to survive re-entry, yet fragile enough to crumble into brown dust if left in the sun. Parents kept buying them because kids loved the NASA tie-in, not because anyone actually wanted to eat them. It was the only snack that could make both astronauts and children question their life choices. They came in flavors like caramel, peanut butter, and chocolate, though none resembled anything found on Earth. Kids begged their parents for them, imagining themselves floating in zero gravity, only to realize astronauts probably ate better than this. The ads showed smiling families pretending this was adventure food, but in every kitchen, the reaction was the same: confusion, then regret. The texture was somewhere between an eraser and a protein bar that lost its will to live. They disappeared by the 1980s, only to return decades later as a nostalgia novelty. Because apparently, even bad memories can make money if you wrap them in silver. Kool-Aid wasn't just a drink, it was a ritual. Every kid in the 1950s knew the sound of that powder hitting a pitcher and the rush of color swirling through the water. With just sugar, water, and imagination, a world of flavor appeared for pennies. It was bright, sweet, and affordable, the perfect symbol of middle-class fun. The first sip was pure excitement, too sweet, too colorful, and somehow perfect every single time. It wasn't just a beverage, it was joy in motion, stirred up by tiny hands and summer light. Kids loved it because they could make it themselves, stirring with wide grins as the water turned electric red or neon green. Parents loved it because it brought laughter to the table without breaking the grocery budget. Kool-Aid was a kind of magic, the ability to make something wonderful from nearly nothing. It was the taste of summer, birthday parties, and endless afternoons. The smiling face on the packet was more than a mascot. It was a promise of joy in liquid form. In an era of post-war optimism, Kool-Aid was liquid happiness poured straight from the pitcher, a reminder that even small things could make life feel extraordinary. Yes, this was real. In the 1950s, novelty stores sold dog smoking kits, designed to teach pets to hold cigarettes in their mouths while exhaling smoke. Advertisements promised endless laughter and party entertainment, complete with instructions and a small clamp to fit over a dog's snout. Crowds gathered at picnics or block parties to watch Fido puff away like a tired office worker. The dogs, of course, had no idea what was happening. The kits didn't hurt them directly, but secondhand smoke and sheer indignity probably didn't help. Even by mid-century standards, it was surreal, a nation so charmed by smoke that it tried to share it with its pets. These were the years when fun often meant forgetting the line between novelty and nonsense. It was the decade's most surreal expression of human boredom, proof that if people could make something smoke, they would. The craze faded as quickly as it began, but the photos still haunt history books. Smiling families, tail-wagging pets, and a cloud of absurdity no one seemed to notice. In the 1950s, even man's best friend couldn't escape humanity's worst ideas. MSG-laden soup mixes were the backbone of 1980s casseroles, stews, and potluck dinners. Every home cook had a few packets stashed away, ready to transform boring chicken into culinary magic. Just add water, the boxes said, and families did, by the millions. The flavor was bold, addictive, and unmistakably artificial. Then came the MSG scare, a flood of reports blaming monosodium glutamate for headaches, fatigue, and Chinese restaurant syndrome. Overnight, something that once meant flavor now meant fear. MSG became public enemy number one thanks to sensational headlines and questionable studies. Suddenly, housewives who'd spent years cooking with it were tossing it in the trash. Even companies that knew the science was shaky jumped ship to avoid backlash. Manufacturers scrambled to hide it under new names like hydrolyzed protein. Supermarkets purged shelves and recipe books quietly rewrote themselves. The craze for all-natural cooking that followed changed the way America seasoned its food forever. By the 1990s, MSG's reputation was unfairly destroyed, though science later found little evidence of harm. Still, those old packets disappeared for good, taking with them a flavor so intense it almost made you forget what real food tasted like. Tuna noodle loaf mix was the Frankenstein's monster of mid-century meal kits. Inside the box was powdered sauce, dried noodles, and a mysterious gelatin binder that turned dinner into a wiggling block of horror. Add canned tuna and water, and voila, a loaf that looked alive and smelled dead. It wobbled on the plate like it was trying to escape, oozing grayish liquid from its sides. Kids stared at it in fear. Parents pretended it was innovative, and even cats circled it suspiciously. Some households gave up halfway and called it soup instead. It still wasn't edible. The gelatin made it both dry and wet at the same time, a texture only nightmares could describe. It jiggled when it shouldn't have, squeaked when sliced, and somehow managed to taste both fishy and flavorless. Families across America tried to eat it politely, but even the dog walked away. The company behind it called it a wholesome family dinner. History called it culinary trauma. The 1970s produced many bad ideas, but this one defied physics, taste, and mercy. Tuna noodle loaf mix was proof that some foods should remain mysteries. Jello gelatin molds turned every dessert table into a display of edible architecture. Bright, colorful, and a little bizarre, they were the showpieces of mid-century kitchens. Every family had a favorite combination: pineapple chunks, marshmallows, even shredded carrots suspended in translucent wobbling towers. Jello wasn't just food, it was performance. Mothers took pride in their molds, comparing layers and colors like painters admiring canvases. When that dessert wobbled onto the table, it wasn't just dessert, it was applause for creativity disguised as dinner. It represented control over nature itself. Sweetness, color, and texture, all perfectly contained in a shimmering mold. For housewives, it was creativity made visible, proof that the home could still be an art form. The sound of that wobbly jiggle at dinner parties became a symbol of pride, the centerpiece of gatherings from church socials to Christmas dinners. It photographed beautifully, tasted nostalgic, and looked futuristic. Kids loved its bounce. Adults admired its precision. Jello made dessert something both playful and sophisticated. In a decade obsessed with presentation and perfection, it captured the exact balance between science and showmanship. Every mold was a small, sweet victory for the modern homemaker. The 1950s were an era of bizarre inventions, but few were as hauntingly memorable as the mechanical ice cream cone licker. Marketed as a fun training toy, it featured a fake cone topped with a spinning rubber tongue that rotated rapidly when turned on. Children were supposed to hold it up and practice licking without wasting real ice cream. The result? A generation of traumatized kids and confused parents. The ads called it educational, teaching hand-eye coordination through dessert simulation. But the reality looked more like a carnival nightmare. The rubber tongue made unsettling slurping noises, often flicking droplets of melted ice cream substitute across the room. Sometimes it jammed mid-lick, leaving the toy whirring angrily while kids screamed. It was the perfect symbol of the decade's faith in machines, proof that even pleasure could be automated, and humanity would be better for it. Parents bought it anyway, because the 1950s were the golden age of gimmicks, when no one wanted to be left behind by progress, no matter how creepy it looked. The mechanical licker was soon discontinued, likely after realizing that children didn't need help eating ice cream. They were already experts. But for a brief, bizarre moment, the future had a face, and it was a spinning rubber tongue. Sodium cyclamate. Sweeteners were the diet craze before the diet craze. Found in everything from light pudding to slim sodas, cyclamate promised sweet flavor without calories, the holy grail of 1980s food science. People believed in it, companies profited from it, and health agencies panicked over it. It was the decade's answer to indulgence without consequence, and every brand wanted in on the trend. Cafeterias, bakeries, and soda fountains stocked it proudly, certain they were serving the future of healthy sweetness. Then the studies hit: lab rats, cancer scares, and a wave of panic that turned every diet label into a potential danger sign. Early animal studies hinted that the additive might be carcinogenic, and by the mid-1980s, the United States pulled it off the market completely. Europe followed soon after, though a few countries still clung to it for years. Consumers were confused, wondering why yesterday's miracle was suddenly today's poison. The ban forced food companies to scramble for substitutes, giving rise to the aspartame era, a solution that sparked even more controversy. For many 1980s dieters, cyclamate was their first taste of betrayal, a chemical sweetheart that turned out to be a bad relationship. Swanson great starts. Breakfast TV dinners were frozen optimism at its frostiest. They came in divided trays featuring scrambled eggs, pancakes, and sausages, all perfectly soggy by the time they hit your plate. The idea was breakfast made easy, but it ended up tasting like Sunday morning regret. The pancakes absorbed the syrup like sponges soaking in despair. The eggs had a rubbery snap that made you question if they were ever eggs at all. Even the sausage, supposedly the star, was gray and flavorless, like breakfast had just given up. The eggs looked like yellow sponges, and the pancakes had the consistency of damp sponges. Even the syrup was trapped in its own compartment, slowly merging into every corner of the tray. The smell alone warned you that no great start was coming. The pancakes were rubbery, the eggs tasted like cardboard, and the syrup managed to be both too thin and too sweet. Even the sausage looked tired, gray, greasy, and spiritually defeated. It was convenience at its most depressing, the kind of meal that made you rethink your entire morning. Swanson had cornered the dinner market, but breakfast proved too fragile to freeze. Great starts turned into a short-lived joke, a frozen reminder that some things are better made fresh or not at all. Of all the 1950s food inventions, canned bread might be the strangest and somehow the most practical. It came in shiny tins that promised freshness preserved for years. The dough was baked directly inside the can, resulting in a dense brown loaf that slid out like a sponge. It was oddly satisfying to open and surprisingly edible with enough butter or jam. Advertisers pitched it as the future of convenience, perfect for camping, lunchboxes, and the inevitable nuclear apocalypse. Families loved it because it felt both comforting and futuristic, a loaf built to survive anything, even the end of the world. It was proof that America's appetite for innovation extended all the way to its pantry shelves. Housewives stocked it next to canned peaches and Spam, proud of their preparedness. It was comfort food with a metal edge, part bakery, part bunker ration. The taste? Sweet, slightly metallic, and unforgettably weird. Canned bread captured the contradictions of the era perfectly: optimistic, paranoid, and determined to can everything, even tradition. It's still made in small corners of New England today, but as a curiosity, not a comfort. Back then, though, it was survival you could slice. Clam juice bottles were the sad, fishy ghosts of 1970s grocery store shelves. Sold as both a health elixir and a kitchen essential, they were supposed to make cooking faster and easier, a splash of ocean flavor right from your fridge. In reality, they were briny nightmares waiting to ruin dinner. One sip, and you'd swear you'd just licked the side of a boat. Most people bought it once out of curiosity, then left it to haunt their refrigerator forever. The label promised pure sea freshness, but what it delivered was low tide in a bottle. Even professional chefs admitted it tasted like seawater filtered through regret. Advertisers claimed it was a natural energy booster, rich in minerals and flavor, but no amount of marketing could mask the fact that it smelled like low tide and regret. Home cooks tried using it in chowders or sauces, but one pour was enough to ruin an entire meal or a marriage. The bottle itself was a trap, glass, slim, and slightly foggy, daring you to forget it existed. Once opened, it would migrate to the back of the refrigerator, where it would live forever, untouched, unspoiled, and immortal. Even decades later, people still find half-empty bottles of it behind the mustard, preserved like relics from the age of bad ideas. Clam juice was not a beverage, not a shortcut, and definitely not food. It was proof that the 1970s could sell anything once, but only once. Crystal Pepsi was one of the boldest and briefest soda experiments of the late 1980s. It promised purity, innovation, and the excitement of a cola without color. The clear, caffeine-free drink came in sleek glass bottles that looked more like something from a health spa than a vending machine. The marketing was futuristic, clean, minimalist, and dripping with 1980s confidence. Commercials showed waterfalls, lasers, and people in white suits drinking clarity in a bottle. It was Pepsi's boldest move yet, but the taste didn't match the hype. People lined up to try it, expecting magic, and got confusion instead. The flavor was flat, oddly sweet, and missing the bite that made cola famous. Pepsi called it clarity, but most called it weird. Within a year, the product fizzled, joining the ranks of marketing myths that burned bright and vanished fast. Critics later called it the most 1980s drink ever made, all style, no substance, and a little too confident in its own coolness. Crystal Pepsi may have been banned by poor sales, not law, but its spirit fits perfectly in this list, an idea too clean for a world that wanted its cola dark, caffeinated, and unapologetically messy. Campbell's cream of mushroom soup was the secret backbone of 1950s cooking. Found in every pantry, it wasn't just soup. It was the glue holding casseroles together across suburban America. A single can could stretch leftovers, feed a family, and make almost anything taste homemade. Housewives mixed it with tuna, green beans, chicken, or rice, creating dishes that were easy, creamy, and dependable. It was food engineering disguised as comfort food. For many families, that can represented more than a shortcut. It was a sign that even the busiest mother could still serve a meal made with love. It was innovation meeting affection, where a can opener replaced a rolling pin and nobody minded the trade. Every church potluck and holiday table owed something to that red and white can. It wasn't glamorous, but it was reliable, a flavor that said home in every bite. The genius was in its versatility. It made ordinary ingredients feel indulgent. For women balancing new appliances and old expectations, Campbell's was a quiet helper in the background, saving time and sanity. Its rich, salty aroma defined what dinner smelled like in post-war kitchens. By the time you saw that familiar label, you already knew it was going to be good. Campbell's cream of mushroom soup turned cooking from a chore into a shortcut, and America gladly took the deal. Squeeze Parkay. Margarine looked like the future of cooking. Smooth, golden, and ready to squirt straight from a bottle. You didn't need a knife, a dish, or even manners. Just aim and squeeze. For busy 1980s households, it was heaven in a bottle. But the dream melted fast. The plastic packaging was made with chemicals that didn't play well with heat, and kitchens tend to get hot. Over time, the bottles began leaching toxins into the margarine, especially when left near stoves or windows. Families started noticing a strange film forming on their food, slick, waxy, and nothing like butter. Laboratory tests later confirmed what everyone feared. The bottles were slowly contaminating their contents. It was the kind of convenience no one wanted anymore. The FDA wasn't impressed. Consumers noticed strange aftertastes, discoloration, and even separation inside the bottle. Parkay scrambled to defend the product, insisting it was safe when used correctly, but the damage was done. By the late 1980s, new safety rules forced the company to retire the original design. It was a reminder that even convenience has limits, especially when your easy squeeze turns into a chemical squeeze. Aid's Diet Candy was one of those ideas that seemed genius until the world changed. Sold in small boxes, these chewy, chocolate-like cubes promised to take the edge off hunger while feeling indulgent. They actually worked, mostly because they tasted like vitamins and guilt. The commercials showed slim women smiling as they chewed, pretending it was delicious. The slogan, "AIDS helps you lose weight," became an instant disaster once the AIDS epidemic hit a decade later. By then, even loyal customers couldn't stomach the name, no matter how many rebrands the company tried. The name alone wasn't the problem in the 1970s. It was catchy, short, and even sophisticated. Then the 1980s arrived, and the global AIDS crisis made that name catastrophic. No marketing campaign could recover from the tragic coincidence. The product itself wasn't terrible, more caramel chew than candy. But no one could stomach the association. Within a few years, AIDS vanished completely. It remains one of the most unfortunate rebranding stories in history, a cautionary tale that timing can kill even the sweetest idea. Which of these strange 1950s car features would you bring back for one more ride? Drop your favorite in the comments, tap like to keep the chrome shining, and subscribe so we can keep cruising through history together.